Welcome to the Speechie Show. Being a speech-language pathologist often means having too much work and not enough planning time. To beat the overwhelm, we're bringing you the tricks and tools that will make your job a little bit easier. To the Speechie Show. I'm here today with Autumn Bryant from expandYourScope.com. How are you today, Autumn?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. We are here to talk to you today about what to do if you're considering a different setting for your speech-language pathology job. We are blessed in our field to have a lot of different options when it comes to what kind of setting we can work in, but that often makes it a little intimidating when you're thinking about switching jobs or considering a different setting. It's hard to know if it's going to be right for you. So Autumn is here today to help us talk about that. And while we do our introductions, go ahead and type into the questions box, or the comments, type into the comments what your current setting is. We'd like to see where everyone is at, so that will help us guide our discussion today. So if you're new to the show, my name is Carrie Clark. I am from SpeechAndLanguageKids.com, and this is the Speechie Show. Every week I interview a new speech-language pathologist, and we talk about one topic, share 5 quick tips, and then we give you a giveaway and some fun resources at the end. So stay tuned for that. Autumn, why don't you go ahead and tell our listeners a little bit about you if they're unfamiliar with you?
So I've been a speech-language pathologist for 9 years now, but I spent most of my career in the school setting in the same district from the time that I graduated. But I worked in a lot of different schools within that. So I worked in about half of the schools in the district within the course of my time there. So different age ranges all the way from preschool to junior high. And then in the summers, I also worked in special needs schools with children with more intense needs. And then about a year ago, I transitioned over into working in a pediatric outpatient clinic.
Okay. And when you transferred to that new location, was that kind of when you started thinking about your idea of how to transfer between settings? Was that the impetus there?
It was actually even before that. It's something that I've long thought that there was a need for. Watching colleagues that were newer to the field and they still had that knowledge fresh in their minds from graduate school, and seeing them be able to work in other settings on the weekends or in the summers or transition out completely, I felt kind of stuck in a way because I had been in one setting so long, and I wanted the confidence and the competence to be able to transition.
Perfect. So you run a website, expandYourScope.com, and that talks all about transferring settings for speech-language pathologists, correct?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit more about what she has going on here in just a bit. But we're going to jump in with 5 tips for what to do if you are considering changing to a different setting and you want to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you. Tessa's on today and says she's based in the UK with kids 2 to 11 in nursery and schools. All right, perfect. If you're on here watching live, go ahead and comment in with what your setting is so we know where everybody is. Okay, so the first tip that we're going to talk about today is doing continuing ed units in the area or the domain that you're looking at transferring to. So Autumn, go ahead and tell us what you recommend people do in terms of getting those CEUs and what kinds of things should they be thinking about while they're watching those.
So I think people should be looking for CEUs that reflect their interests. So even if it's something that they don't have a whole lot of experience with, look for courses that are at that introductory level if it's been a while since you've been in that area. And there are so many websites available these days to provide online CEUs, so we can really explore a little bit more than we used to be able to when you just had to wait for in-person workshops. So go ahead and check out all those different CEU courses that you think you might have an interest in and see what really strikes a chord with you.
And when you're watching those courses, if you think, okay, this is a setting maybe that I could be doing, is there some questions you should be asking yourself while you're watching that will help you kind of come up with some ideas to help guide that decision?
So I think when you're watching CEU courses or attending a CEU workshop, a lot of times they're giving you the textbook kind of scenarios or best case scenarios. And we know that in the real world practice, there's so many factors that could influence how treatment really looks and how you're able to implement a program. So think about the kinds of things that factor into your therapy that are based on your location and your policies and procedures at your location, and how that might look in trying to implement those programs, and write down what your questions would be for how that looks in the real world.
Perfect. All right, so you do a bunch of continuing ed classes and you think, okay, there's this one type of setting that I think this would be really good fit for me, but I'm just not sure. So the next thing you want to do is consider finding someone to shadow. Can you talk about what that would look like and what the purpose of that would be?
Sure. So I've actually done quite a bit of shadowing in my career. Even though I have my C's, I still think it's so valuable to go and shadow other speech language pathologists. We all do things a little bit differently based on personal style and just what we've learned from other SLPs. So I think one thing that you want to do is make time for lots of shadowing opportunities. In terms of what that would look like, it looks pretty much like what you remember from when you were shadowing when you were still in graduate school, where you're kind of sitting back and you're observing and you're letting the other person just go about their normal session. And then at the end, you're able to ask them some follow-up questions.
Perfect. Yeah. And can you talk about some of the places that you might look if you're trying to find someone to shadow that is in the particular setting that you're looking for?
So one way to arrange shadowing opportunities is through networking. Networking is so great. You might know other SLPs that are in your setting, but maybe they know of someone in a different setting, friend of a friend who could let you shadow them. That's how I arranged some of mine. But I also networked at our state conference. Go up and talk to the presenters. If you are after a really interesting C, you could talk to them, see if there's a way to go and shadow. But if you just need to completely call someone, you could try the resources that we have on the website, such as using LinkedIn, another form of networking. You could look through the ASHA profile, which is something I just recently thought of doing because there's so many SLPs that are listed there and they have their specialties and what city and state they're practicing out of. And you could reach out to them. Usually they have their email address or something posted so you can contact them. It might take a little bit of explanation because typically I found that when people are asking to shadow, people are automatically in the mindset of this person must be a student or a clinical fellow, and they're not necessarily expecting someone with their C's to reach out for shadowing.
Sure. Wonderful. All right. If you guys are watching and you have any questions, go ahead and put those in and we will answer your questions as we go along. And don't forget to share this as well so we can spread the word on this one. Okay, so we've talked about if you're considering a new setting to first do some continuing ed in that area to get an idea of what types of information you need, and then finding someone to shadow. So let's talk about you found someone to shadow and you're going to do an observation of their sessions now. So let's talk first about those real-world challenges that we noticed when we were doing our continuing ed courses, the questions you were asking as you were taking those. How do you talk to that other speech-language pathologist about those real-world challenges and get a real picture for what that's like?
So I think you want to have those questions either written down or in the back of your head as you're watching the therapy session first, because some of them, the answers might become pretty obvious just as you're watching, and others you might realize that there are factors that you didn't even consider that are already being navigated around by what the therapist is doing. Another reason that it's so great to shadow is a lot of times we are so, as a profession, so innovative and such problem solvers that we might not think to tell someone this is an issue you need to work around because we just adapt.
Yeah.
And we just automatically do it. And it's not until someone else watches you that, you might realize that. So after you've already gotten those out of the way, then after the session is over, you can, if there's a brief minute between patients or between students, you could ask, or oftentimes you'll have lunch with them and you can have, a back and forth about what questions you have.
Sure. And I've noticed too, it can be really helpful to talk about, okay, what is the behind the scenes kind of stuff look like? Like you might be watching their therapy session, but what does the paperwork and the data collection and report writing, what does that look like, and how much of your day does that take up? Because you might see, wow, this looks like really fun therapy, and then you're like, oh, but you have to do all of your paperwork every night after work, so.
Right. And yeah, that's definitely another thing to keep in mind too. And also, I think just when you observe people in general, a lot of times we're putting on our best face. And so we might not want to show you all of those extra parts. So asking about those kinds of things, think about the things that are required in your setting. And then you could ask if those same kind of things are required and how they navigate that in their setting. And I forgot to mention that other ways that you can look for people to shadow is just by Googling clinics and local universities, schools, nursing homes, and things in your area.
Perfect. Wonderful. All right. So we've talked about asking about those real world challenges, what it's really like to do this job. So another thing you can do during your observation when you're shadowing another speech language pathologist would be to kind of keep a list of the things that you do like and the things that you don't like. Talk about how that would look and how you've done that in the past, Autumn.
So thinking about those real world challenges, including the unexpected ones that pop up, I usually, have a notepad with me and just jot down things that I'm seeing right there in the moment for things that I like and don't like. One example that comes to mind is I was working in a junior high before I started working with little ones. And so I was used to having a passing period in between classes where kids just automatically left the room. And I didn't even have to go and get the next set of kids because they were old enough to walk to the speech therapy room by themselves. But then when I went to go and shadow in an early childhood setting, seeing that there was no time in between sessions for that SLP, and they were back to back going to pick up kids or pushing into classrooms, that's not something that you might think about. But for me, the way I operate, I like just even if it's just 60 seconds between sessions to kind of decompress and get myself together and prepare for the next one. So taking a mental note or a written note of things like that was very helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's so many little things that you don't think about like that until you actually see it, which is why doing that observation can really be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Exactly.
Okay, so after you've written down your things that you did and didn't like during the observation, another thing that you can write down are practices and techniques that you like and ones that you would have to adapt. Tell us how that looks in an observation.
So, where you observe, it might not be exactly the fit for what you want to ultimately do, but there's always a takeaway. I feel in every observation session, there's always something you can take away, even if it's something that you saw someone do where you thought, I really wouldn't do that, but make a mental note of why and what you would do differently. One thing that comes to mind is in watching an SLP who's in one setting every day. And there are programs that require, therapy to be very consistent, and you implement it 5 days a week or 4 days a week or something like that. And some of us don't have that luxury where we're in the same building every day. So making sure that we make a mental note of how can this program be adapted for my setting and still be implemented with a level of fidelity that I'm comfortable with if that's how the program was designed, or if your facility doesn't have the same equipment and you need to make do with the things that you have. Trying to brainstorm that in the moment. And you might even ask that other SLP if you thought about it before you left for their tips, because maybe they didn't always have the equipment or the tools that they need either.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, you going back to what you said about there always being a takeaway, even if you go to that setting and you observe and you say, man, I absolutely do not want to work in that setting, that is not for me, there's still going to be therapy activities or ideas that you had never thought about trying that way that you're going to benefit from that. So I think even if you're just considering switching locations and you're not even sure, you might as well go do an observation because like you said, there's going to be something that you can take back to your practice.
Exactly. When I went and did that preschool observation, I did ultimately work with preschool students, but there were still activities that were done there that I then took back to work with some of my more severely impaired junior high kids that were that were still a good basis for an activity, and I just adapted it for the age level. So I definitely got great ideas there. And then there are even ones that I didn't think I would transition into those settings, but they've helped with patients or clients that I was not expecting to get, because you never know in this field who's going to walk through the door sometimes.
Yep.
So I went and observed in a voice clinic, and that was a very interesting experience, but I will probably never work exclusively in a voice clinic. But then all of a sudden, here comes some more voice patients. So things like that were definitely very helpful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I did an observation of a lady who was doing tongue thrust therapy, and I had never done anything with tongue thrust. I went in and did just an observation of her doing an evaluation of some of my clients, and I learned so much in that 20-minute evaluation. I was just like, wow, this is amazing. So yeah, I really think it can be a good tool, even if you're not changing settings, even if you just want to know more about some clients that may possibly come your way. So yeah, I think that's great.
Exactly.
All right,
I've even heard of a few coworkers within the same district who've shadowed each other. So the settings are not that different at all, but just being able to see what someone else's ideas were. And I had a coworker in the exact same setting as me, but in a different school, come and shadow me as she was newer to the field, and I was had a few more years. So, just getting ideas from each other, and even having time to talk. Because sometimes as SLPs, we're like the lone person in a building. Just having someone to talk speechy stuff with can be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why this show is so popular, is you get to hear ideas from somebody who's done something a little differently than you. So yeah, I think you're right on. Okay, we have a question here from Bianca. She asks, is it possible to shadow a speech-language pathologist before starting a graduate program? So thinking about somebody who may be interested in entering the field and isn't even in a setting yet, do you think these same steps are pretty spot on, or would you change anything if it was somebody who didn't have experience in any setting yet?
If they don't have any experience in any setting, I wouldn't say that they need to sit down and watch any CEU courses or anything like that. Just go in open-minded and ready to see what you think. But in terms of arranging the shadowing experience, that part would probably be pretty similar in terms of finding a place to go and shadow.
Yeah. Basically, the speech-language pathologist just needs to have you sign something that says you're going to keep everything confidential, you're not going to share any patient information. But yeah, we do this all the time. We let graduate students, undergraduates come in, because you really have to get a feel for what the field is, what the therapy looks like, because there's so much you can do.
Right.
There's a lot of aspects.
And then even for those of us who have their Cs, I found that most facilities will still have you sign something, even though they know you're already aware of HIPAA and those kinds of laws. They'll still have you sign something. Some will even go as far as to do a background check or something like that, because they really need to protect patients and make sure everything is confidential. But then some will also ask each patient beforehand if it's okay if a student or another professional observes, and it's really up to that patient's discretion.
Yeah, I always did that too when I was doing private practice. I would make sure the parents and the kid were both okay with someone being in the room, because, sometimes people are not comfortable with that, and that's okay.
Right.
All right. Well, we've shared some really fun tips for you today for what to do if you're considering moving to a different setting. So now we're going to move on to our resources and giveaway. So we're going to talk about our favorite resources, do giveaways, and then we're going to wrap it up for today. So, Autumn, what is your favorite resource for someone considering switching settings?
So the resource that I developed is my favorite, expandYourScope.com. So what we do is we match SLPs with each other for shadowing experiences and also for mentoring. So maybe you don't have the time in your schedule to go and shadow, but you still want someone to ask those speech and language related questions to, another professional to bounce ideas off of. We match them with each other, and that way the people have already agreed that they want to participate in this program and let someone shadow them or be a mentor, versus when you cold call, sometimes you might not hear back at all, or it might be a no. So this takes that step.
Perfect. So that's just basically making it even easier to shadow other people and get help from other SLPs, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. So that's over at expandYourScope.com if you want to check that out. And what is your giveaway that you are giving away today?
So expandYourScope.com, the website, is completely free. But we also have a Facebook page where SLPs are all verified to be CCC SLPs. We verify everyone because we really want it to be a safe place to discuss any issues within the field and transitioning. So that is a $15 per year membership. But we today would like to give one away for Facebook.com/groups/expandYourScope.
Okay. Perfect. So the Expand Your Scope Facebook group, that is going to be the first giveaway today. And the second giveaway today will be 2 free months in my membership program, the Speech Therapy Solution, which you're actually a member of, aren't you? So if you're not familiar with that, that is my membership for speech language pathologists. We have monthly webinars. I answer questions on the website and in the Facebook group, and other SLPs are there to answer as well. There's also training videos and ready-to-go therapy materials inside that membership. So a lot of things that are going to help make your job easier, and you can find that by going to speechandlanguagekids.com/join. So I'm going to ask a question right here live on Facebook Live. The first 2 people to answer the question will win. The first person to type in their answer will win the membership to the Facebook group for Expand Your Scope. The second person will win the 2 free months in my membership. So here we go. Oops, I hit the mic. Are you guys ready? Okay, so the question is, what setting would you consider moving to? The first 2 people to type in the setting they would consider moving to will win the giveaway today. We hope that that helped you guys with your consideration of what you're thinking about if you're thinking about moving settings. We hope that you'll join us next week on the Speechie Show. We're going to be talking about progress monitoring with Lisa and Sarah from the SLP Toolkit. So join us next Monday afternoon on Facebook Live for that. And while we're waiting for people to type in, if you missed the question, oh, here we go. Tessa says head and neck adults is what she would consider. All right, Tessa, you win the membership to the Expand Your Scope Facebook group. And Ashley Blake Doubt, you said a school setting working with elementary students would be your preference. Ashley, you're going to win the 2 free months to my membership. So, Autumn, how could Tessa get a hold of you to get her membership?
So, Tessa, if you want to go to facebook.com/expand your scope to our Facebook page and send me a message there, or you can email me at info@griffinspeech.com.
Perfect. And let's see, Ashley, if you'll email me at Carrie@speechandlanguagekids.com, that's Carrie, and my assistant Kenna will get you set up with your 2 free months. All right, Bianca says she wants to look into the medical settings. Wonderful.
Cool.
Thank you all for joining us today. If you want more help with your tough speech-language pathology cases, you can go to speechandlanguagekids.com/join and check out all the information about the membership for the Speech Therapy Solution. And Autumn, where can people find more about you?
So our website is www.expandyourscope.com, and I've got my bio and information about the program there, and you can email me at info@griffinspeech.com. That's info@GRIFFIN speech.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for joining us. If you have any further questions, you can always add those to the comments on Facebook or on the blog post on the website, and we will be in there answering questions as well. All right, thanks so much, and everybody have a good day. Bye for now.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks for joining us today on The Speechie Show. We hope today's tips have helped you feel a little less stressed and a little more confident about your work. If you're looking for more stress busters and confidence boosters, we'd love to have you join us in the Speech Therapy Solution, where you'll get access to a huge library of premium training videos and another library of print and go therapy materials. You can also get help with your tough cases by joining Carrie on the weekly Q&A calls or by posting in the exclusive Facebook group. Plus, group members can join us for a monthly webinar that can be used for continuing education credit. Head on over to speechandlanguagekids.com/join to check out all the amazing benefits of the Speech Therapy Solution membership. Bye for now.